Good day, everyone. Welcome to Blacklogic. 3 officers killed, 2 injured in Pennsylvania warrant ambush, motive under investigation. Tony Blair's U.S.-backed plan aims to replace Hamas and secure peace in Gaza. Trump calls on NBC to cancel Fallon, Meyers after Kimmel suspension over Charlie Kirk's jokes. House Democrats clash over GOP-led resolution to honor Charlie Kirk's legacy. Experts warn America faces rising political violence after Charlie Kirk shooting. And ladies and gentlemen, we must talk about white genocide. So I don't know if you guys are aware that 5 officers got shot and 3 fatal. That's coming out of Pennsylvania in a very rural area. Unfortunately, these officer lives were taken as they were serving a warning about domestic violence. Now, I don't know if you guys are familiar with this story, but this happened in the North Cordes Township in York County, Pennsylvania, and law enforcement serving a warrant were ambushed. 3 officers were killed, 2 more critically wounded, and the suspect was killed by police, and authorities have not released full identities to officers or the suspect. And the community reacted with funeral processions, flags at half-mast, and calls for answers from state officials. And again, this goes right back to some of the videos I've been doing over the past 2 weeks about gun violence in America. And we continue to have death, chaos, and mayhem that is thriving for the amount of guns that we have in America, and guns in the wrong hand of Americans. But again, there's going to be hundreds of thousands of Americans that will comment and state that this is indeed one of the hallmarks, one of the things that we have to go through in order to exercise our constitutional rights of the rights to bear arms. The only questions I have for people who are staunch gun right advocates is how many more people have to be killed before we start to really dive into the weeds about gun violence, let alone having more restrictive gun laws? That's the only question, because we're going to continue to have this, and we've been having this for a very long time. And it seems that no matter how many people are lost to gun violence, nobody wants to make gun laws more restrictive. It totally blows my mind. Now, Tony Blair, U.S.-backed proposal for ending the Gaza war and replacing Hamas. Blair has been working with the U.S. support on what's been called a day after plan for Gaza, including replacing Hamas as the governing body. The proposal is becoming more definite per documents obtained, seen as essential in the U.S. view for achieving a permanent ceasefire and securing hostages. And believe me when I tell you, the president has chimed in on this about how they should go about doing this. U.S. President Donald Trump has authorized Tony Blair. He has authorized Tony Blair to rally regional and international stakeholders around the former UK Prime Minister's proposal to establish a post-war transitional body to govern the Gaza Strip until it can be handed over to the Palestinian authorities. Now, that last part is the part I really want you guys to focus on, stating that once they eradicate Hamas out of Gaza, that they're going to transfer Gaza into Palestinian authorities. I don't believe that's going to happen. Even if it does happen, I don't believe that's going to happen within the next few years. Do I believe it's going to happen in my lifetime? It's a possibility, but I don't believe that's going to happen as soon as they make it seem, that they're going to hand it back over to the Palestinian authorities. Israel is already occupying Gaza. Israel has already had 220,000 people to flee south from Gaza City. So you think that Israel, again, using hundreds of millions of dollars to bombard and destroy Gaza, that they're just going to relinquish that back to the Palestinian authorities after Trump, as well as Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, stated that they were going to basically renovate Gaza into the likes of which they see and make it beachfront property? You think they're just going to give it back to Palestinian authorities? I don't think so. That's my opinion about it. I don't think they will. Now, of course, this is making headlines lately that Jimmy Kimmel has been indefinitely suspended from ABC after his very controversial remarks about Charlie Kirk's killing. And Trump praised the suspension and publicly called on NBC to cancel Jimmy Fallon and Seth Meyers. This is the most involved U.S. president in our country's history that has ever been. This is the most involved U.S. president in every facet of America. He's in social media. He's in mass media. He's in politics and business, industrial. I mean, and I don't mean that he should not be, listen, but he comments, writes executive orders, make actions and legislation on almost every single thing in America. I've never seen so much hands-on president. And this man is what, almost 80, if not 80? I don't know what he takes in the morning, coffee, B12, cocaine, I don't know. But he has a lot of energy to be a part of almost every single facet of America. It's very hyperbolic when your president is in the weeds on everything. Don't you have people in place? He's now commenting on his critics and that he's happy that his critics got fired. Some people will call President Trump very petty. I'm inclined to agree. Now, it states here that President Trump is celebrating comedian Jimmy Kimmel's suspension and urging the network to cast a wide net, meaning that he also wants Stephen Colbert, Seth Meyers, and Jimmy Fallon to be canceled as well. Great news for America. The ratings challenge Kimmel show is canceled. Congratulations to ABC for finally having the courage to do what had to be done. And believe it or not, if you really look into the reason why he got fired, it's not because of what he said. I mean, it is because of what he said, but it's because the licensing deals, right, of local networks not wanting to host ABC in the Jimmy Fallon show. The Jimmy Kimmel show. That's about licensing. They were going to lose their license in local networks that supported Charlie Kirk. I'm going to cover this a little bit later. The reason why I'm pausing here, ladies and gentlemen, because there is chaotic turmoil in our country right now. People are turning all the way up. There's so many things happening at one time. And only we, the people, can stop this from America destroying itself. I wonder who would be the bigger woman. I wonder who would be the bigger man. House Democrats are split on a Republican-backed resolution to honor Charlie Kirk's death. And some fear the resolution language, biblical truth, makes it very, very uncomfortable. Some Democrats say they're being set up politically, worried that refusing the resolution may be portrayed as being soft on political violence. I wonder, where is these resolution when it came to the killing of the Minnesota representative, Melissa Hortman, and her husband, Mark Hortman? This is not the first time in American history, ladies and gentlemen. They're calling this political violence. He was a right-wing conservative influence. He wasn't even in government. He wasn't a congressman. He wasn't a senator. He wasn't you could probably say he was a lobbyist, but he didn't hold any seat of office. And they're honoring him as if he is a state representative, as he is a federal representative that holds a senator or congressperson seat. But they didn't do that for Melissa Hortman and her husband. They didn't do that for people who actually held political positions. And these are just some of the headlines and comments. Trump says he won't ask to lower flag for Minnesota lawmaker. Trump at first said he's not familiar with Minnesota Democratic assassination. He's not familiar with it. Okay. What did Trump say about the political killings of Melissa Hortman and Charlie Kirk? America is all the way right wing. And people will argue that when Biden as well as Obama was in office, that America was all the way left wing. America has never been all the way left wing. America has never been all the way right wing. And the reason why I'm saying today that America is all the way right wing, just look at the state of America. No one has to speak or utter or mention or hint or chirp to see the state of America that we are in today. Why America is a dangerous crossroad following the Charlie Kirk shooting. But don't forget, America was already spiraling out of control prior to Charlie Kirk's shooting, to his killing, rather. And it states here, after one of the most searing assassinations in U.S. history, the governor of Utah pleaded for Americans to turn down the political temperature. Now, I want you guys to focus in on this right here. Recent history is full of examples where America has chosen not to come together after a tragedy. It didn't happen 14 years ago after a Democratic congresswoman was shot in the head in Arizona. You guys remember that? No one had an outcry. Nor 8 years ago when a Republican congressman was shot during a baseball practice. America didn't even come together in the face of a global pandemic. In fact, COVID made divisions worse. Even during COVID, we were divided. COVID-19 is fake. Oh, I got COVID-19. It's real. I took a concoction. President Trump. Is this a common cold? President Trump stated. And that you should take bleach. Can we use bleach? He asked the question. He didn't make a statement. He asked the question, should I use bleach? And people just thought that was totally asinine and crazy. But here we are, ladies and gentlemen. America has always been divided. America has been divided on politics. America has been divided on race. America has been divided on business, but somehow we're still the most richest, powerful country in the world. That's because we fork in billions of dollars into our military. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go there here this morning. We're going to talk about America's design, genocide, and white supremacy. This is one of those episodes where facts feel like weapons and silence is a complicit accomplice. And the story we're told is trim, tidy, and polite. The truth is not. The truth is messy. It's bloody stained. It's legal. It's deliberate. Now, let's start very blunt. Across the 19th and 20th centuries, colonial and settler governments, overwhelmingly guided by European and white supremacist worldviews, carried out campaigns of extermination, removal, and social destruction from Namibia to North America to Australia. These campaigns had the same pattern: racial dehumanization, legal doors open to violence, and the conscious extraction of land, labor, and resource. One scholar calls it elimination by law. Policy enforced. The receipts are in treaties, troop orders, and death registers. Let's bring it all home right here in these United States of America. In the United States, the design is visible in plain writing. The Indian Removal Act, the Force Marches West, the Trail of Tears, where thousands of Cherokees were marched from their homes into the Indian Territory, and that included indigenous Black Americans as well, inside of the Cherokee tribe. There were government orders, army detachments, and needless deaths along the route. That was the policy. That wasn't an accident. And the killings did not stop when the land was taken. They were repeated in the form of massacres. Sand Creek, where an encampment of Cheyenne and a Pardo seeking safety was attacked and slaughtered in 1864. Wounded Knee, you guys heard of that one, very popular one, where hundreds of Lakota men and women and children were killed by the U.S. Army in 1890. In 1890, these are not isolated tragedies. They were tactics that cleared the ground for settlement and erased entire communities. And then look at the Black Americans. Look at us. We moved from formal genocide by conquest to a sustained program of destruction, containment, and economic theft. First came chattel slavery, centuries of kidnapping, forced labor, family separation, rape, and legal property status. And then after the Civil War, the same slave economy was rebuilt in another form: black codes, terror lynchings, and convict leasing. That latter, a system that leased incarcerated Black people to mines and plantations and railroads under brutal conditions, because they understand, according to the Constitution, if you are incarcerated, you're still in slavery. It's right there in the Constitution that there should be no involuntary servitude. There should be no slavery unless or except you have committed a crime and been convicted. So that's what they're talking about, convict leasing. This is how you do slavery by another name. The Equal Justice Initiative research documents thousands of lynchings and the systematic terror used to enforce racial subordination. State power didn't stop at violence. It codified inequality. The Tuskegee syphilis study, 1932 to 1972. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about white genocide, how white colonial powers and America have committed genocide on all different groups of people, but we're keeping it Black here at Blacklogic, and how America has tried to eradicate, annihilate, and eliminate foundational Black Americans. And we're not just talking about murder, death, kill. We're talking about environmental. We're talking about health through food, all sorts of things, even with the Tuskegee syphilis study. You guys, there's a book I have in my archives called The Medical Apartheid. You guys should really read that. Because during the syphilis study, this is where Black men were knowingly withheld that they had proven treatments. It shows how medical policies and racist assumptions about Black bodies produce death and distrust in federal housing and lending programs. They had the HOLC maps and the New Deal era policy that redlined Black communities using real estate and proximity and landscaping, denying wealth and building home ownership for generation and locking communities into poverty and environmental vulnerability. These were not by accidents, they were structured. And the result, a constellation of practice, murder, that forced removal and legal discrimination. When you talk to some people who are all into politics, when you talk to some white people who are all into politics, it's as if they don't care or they don't know or they just like blindly disregard history. We're talking about economic exclusion, medical experimentation, environmental neglect, police violence that together amount to multiple mechanisms of destruction. And we see destruction right here in America every single day when you're talking about white on white violence. Political violence is mostly white on white violence. Mass shootings is mostly white on white violence. When police officers are getting killed, it's mostly white on white violence. And then you show them the government on a state and local and federal statistics, and you provide data, they're lies. Oh, they're skewed the numbers. It doesn't matter who's in office, a Republican or a Democrat. They both are complicit in the lie. Throw the rock, hide the hand. If the question is, did America design policies meant to eliminate Black people as a people, the historical record shows a continuous willingness to dehumanize, exploit, sterilize, or expose Black people to harm when it serves private profit or public policy. You don't have to find a memo that says eliminate them to see the design. You read it in policy outcome and repeated patterns of disposition. And when people say, when people ask why, the answer repeats the mythology of white supremacy. Black people were deemed property or subhuman, and pseudoscience claimed intellectual inferiority. They're stupid, they're dumb, they have small brains, they have small heads. They're like primates, they're apes. Economic system needed the labor. Social control required their exclusion. They used slaves to play at concerts with all their instruments. They used blacksmith to build buildings and complex constructions in America. But then all of a sudden we're low IQ and we're stupid and we're primates. We're all these things once all the work have been done, when all the railroads have been built, when all the roads have been paved, when all the buildings have been established. But ideology without structure is powerless, ladies and gentlemen. The law, the courts, the police, the banks and corporations supplied the structure. So this episode is not a whine. It's a calling card. Name the crimes, read the receipts, and build the remedy. Reparations, record restoration, history restoration, truth commissions, policy reversal. These are the things you do when you admit the crime and you stop repeating it. We can just name a couple of times in history where groups of people eradicated other groups of people. I'll just give you names so you can do your own research so you don't just hear me hooping and hollering and going on a rant. German Southwest Africa, 1904 to 1908. King Leopold II control that occurred in the late 1900s and early 20s. Belgian Congo atrocities. That's the name of it. The frontier massacres of indigenous people in Australia and Tasmania. And by the way, the Tasmanian people have been extinct. And when it comes to the United States of America, the Indian Remove Act and the Trail of Tears, we talked about that. Sand Creek Massacre, Wounded Knee, chattel slavery, Reconstruction, Jim Crow, lynching and racial terror, Tulsa, Oklahoma, all the other Black Wall Street, Red Summer of 1919, Rosewood, 1923, Wilmington coup of 1898. This to give you guys some timelines and some dates. But a lot of times people don't want to hear it from me, and I understand. That's okay. We're going to get there.
You think this is a coincidence? I'm here to tell you it isn't. And the reason I'm going public with this, as obviously a white guy, is because, in the black community, black folks can talk to other black folks about this, and they can say things like, yeah, there's a racial targeting genocidal agenda of the medical system. And some other person might say to them, oh, you're just saying that because you're black. I'm saying it, and I'm white. I guarantee I'm white. Last time I checked. This is real. This is happening. The black communities are being specifically targeted by the medical system. The black communities disproportionately suffer under the mass poisoning of the water supply. And also, by the way, of the food supply. That's a whole nother discussion. But if you look at the food that is available in black communities, typically, it is food that is almost engineered to cause cancer, to cause diabetes, to cause heart disease. It is food that is essentially poison. And you don't find the same types of food available in the inner city, predominantly black communities, especially if they're low-income communities. And so the options are completely different. And I know I'm probably gonna get some hate on this video from some white folks saying, I'm stirring up racism. I'm not stirring up anything but the truth here. I'm telling you what I see as an investigator.
There's an overlay, there's an immediate overlay, it's an unquestionable overlay between what Trump has said and these right-wing groups have said. So I'm afraid I have to believe them when they say they have direct access to the Trump administration, and we see it in what Trump has been doing. There's an overlay, there's an immediate overlay, it's an unquestionable overlay between what Trump has said and these right-wing groups have said. So I'm afraid there's an overlay, there's an immediate overlay, there's an immediate overlay, it's an unquestionable overlay between what Trump.
All of us, something having a certain issues here. Let me dispatch this up. There's
an overlay.
They won't let me play the beginning of what he was saying, that basically there's no white genocide in South Africa where white people were getting killed indiscriminately. There was no expiration of land being taken and not being compensated. He does not know one case of it. And this is a white South African. There are a lot of white people that tell the truth, but unfortunately they get shadow banned and overshadowed by white supremacists who tell lies. That's what happened. I can go all day and show black people that talks about racial discrimination and black genocide, but I'd rather show you from the people and from the demographic of people who commits these genocide, and they're calling out their own people because it's evil and they're not evil. When you're calling out evil and you're telling the truth, that's where we are, ladies and gentlemen. Nobody wants to know the truth. But here on Blacklogic, I'm gonna give you just that, the truth.